I'm Gary Williams. Your reviews help other people find this podcast. If you would, please leave a review on iTunes.
This really is open to everybody, even if you're just thinking about writing. You can come and try us out and see if we can help you.
Coming to you straight from Fremont, California, this is the Fremont Podcast, dedicated to telling the stories of the past and present of the people and places of the city of Fremont, one conversation at a time.
Ricky wanted me to put my microphone inside one of these little free libraries and then close the door and through the glass tell you this is episode 98 of the Fremont Podcast.
Now, here's your host, Ricky B.
Yeah, today I have Tish and Evelyn. They are representatives of the Fremont Writers Club. Is that the best way to say it? No,
Fremont
it is
Area
not.
Writers.
Fremont Area Writers. Okay, very good. So it's the Fremont Area Writers. And so Tish, tell me exactly what is the Fremont Area Writers? What?
The Fremont Area Writers is a branch of the California Writers Club, which has 22 branches statewide. It's a writing organization that's open to anyone who wants to write or aspires to write. We've had members that range from students to senior citizens. It was founded in 2000. This branch was founded in 2009, and we have about 40 to 45 members. We have members that write fiction, nonfiction, poetry, and memoir.
Is this? I'm just curious. So, all these different people that are involved, are they particularly looking to write short stories, novels? Is there any particular type of?
It's all over the place.
Okay.
And we also have several gifted artists who have written things to go with their paintings.
Okay. Oh wow. Very good.
And we're a member of the Fremont Cultural Arts Council.
Okay. Yeah.
And sponsor several events every month.
Yeah, I had was an interview with Margaret Thornberry that was back in I interviewed her before April because April was the month when we focused on the arts and culture and all of that. So she joined me. That was a fantastic interview. I enjoyed meeting her. But you're a part of that as well, then.
Yes.
Okay. Very good.
And we're also part of California Writers Club.
Okay.
Which is a statewide organization that was founded in 1909.
Okay. So Tish, what kind of writing do you enjoy? Like, what is it that you do?
I write nonfiction.
Okay.
I write my background is in biology, and I write medically related nonfiction. Mostly, I have written other things. I've written some children's books for Scholastic, and my current book is called Medical Firsts to Change the World, published by Bloomsbury.
Wow.
And I'm working on one right now that's From the War Room to Your Living Room, everyday objects that have originated in the military.
Wow. That's fascinating.
Did you know that freeze-dried instant coffee came out of the technology for freeze-drying blood plasma in World War II?
Are you kidding me?
No.
I did not know that. I'm going to have to get your book. This sounds pretty fascinating.
Well, it won't be out till April 24 of
next year.
Yeah. I've heard of a few other things too that have come out of, like, they were originally designed. I think super glue was one of them.
Super glue, duct tape.
Yeah. Because super glue, it was something they had in the field that they could help seal up lacerations really quickly.
But my favorite is Kotex, sanitary napkins. After World War I, cotton was expensive during World War I, and Kimberly-Clark developed this paper pulp-based bandage material to absorb blood, because World War I was pretty bloody.
Okay.
And when the war ended, they had this huge supply.
Okay.
And they discovered that nurses in France were using this bandage during menstruation.
Huh.
So they decided that they would manufacture a product. The problem was not the product. The problem was that they couldn't get anybody to take the advertising for it. And most of the store clerks were men, and women wouldn't go in and ask for sanitary napkins. And they tried all kinds of things.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Like giving them a coupon, letting them buy a coupon and then putting a coupon in a basket and just take the product. And finally, Albert Lasker, who was an advertising genius who developed Smokey the Bear, convinced Ladies' Home Journal to take advertisements for sanitary napkins, and then the product just took off.
Wow, that is really fascinating. Yeah, when the book comes out, I'll be interested in reading that. That's I know that Banter Books shop down in down on Capitol Avenue. I know that they have a lot of local writer books, bookshelf for them right down there. So I don't know if we can get it on the shelf down there, or if you already have books on
we
the
will
shelf.
certainly try. Most of my books are sold to schools and libraries.
Okay.
But I'm always happy, and I'm hoping the War book can get into some war museums.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
Because you already have an audience then that's somewhat interested.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Banter Books has at least my first book, maybe my second book, because I
really?
walked in there one day and there it was.
Wow.
And not only that, but Amy, the owner, put me in touch with book clubs, and they had me come and speak, which I'm, always.
Very cool.
Writers usually love to talk about their writing.
That's right. The Banter Bookshop is a sponsor of the podcast.
Oh, great.
And I interviewed Amy, I don't know, maybe a month before she opened up. And so, we released the episode about Banter Bookshop on the day that they had their grand opening. So the ribbon cutting, so it was pretty cool.
Well, and I know my publisher really pushes us to try and support the independent bookstores. On our websites, we can't get away with just having one place that you can order our books.
Yeah.
Well, now, Evelyn and I have both spoken about our publishers, but I'd like to emphasize that most of the members of Fremont Area Writers are either not published or self-published or have published on a hybrid model. And there is absolutely no requirement that you be published to join. We encourage people who want to be published and try to help them find outlets that are appropriate for what they want to write. But this really is open to everybody, even if you're just thinking about writing. You can come and try us out and see if we can help you.
Okay. Yeah. So what does that look like? I mean, what is the Fremont Area Writers? What does that look like when they gather? Are there helps? Are there workshops? Are there if someone is interested in publishing, is there anything that might be helpful for someone to get published?
Yeah. Well, we started in 2009.
Okay.
And I was one of the beginning people. In fact, you were asking what position are we in, and I remember I started off as secretary, and at one time I had to fill in for the treasurer, and so we started small with just a few.
Okay.
And it was started by Bob Garfinkel, who had been going to South Bay because there are 22 branches, and he just thought, well, Fremont ought to have their own branch, and so he started our branch exactly 100 years after Jack London is purported to have influenced the forming of the California Writers Club.
Wow.
And
That's pretty cool.
We've got stamps that have something to do with Jack London.
Okay.
But it's a nice, fable.
It's a it's a good fable. It's a good legacy to reflect on, for sure. Yeah. So it started in 2009, and then what did it look like growing
Well, then
out
we
of that?
gradually grew and talk about bookstores. In the beginning, we would meet in bookstores that existed then, and in critique groups. We would write, and then we would share our writing, and other members would react to it. And then we've had different venues around town. It wasn't really easy to always find a place that you could gather, and especially as we grew. And I think the most we've ever had is probably 45 people at a time, and so you have to find a place. But then with the pandemic, we went to Zoom, and now most of the members seem to like that because we can get speakers from all over the world. Saudi Arabia, and that they come to us. And not only that, but people can attend from all over the United States.
Okay. Is your gathering once a week, once a month?
Once a month. Once a month. The third Saturday of the month. Oh, fourth. Oh, thanks, Tish. Fourth Saturday.
She would have shown up.
Well, I said that because I belong to another branch. You can belong to as many branches as you want.
Okay.
In fact, you get a cut rate if you belong to more than one branch.
Nice.
And so the fourth Saturday of every month at 2:00, we have our business meeting. Then we have a speaker sometime between 2 and 4.
Yeah, and then there's so the speaker's probably there to help just inspire and to maybe give information for people on writing. Is that
yes, craft tips on better writing. A long time ago, I presented on how to write a memoir.
Okay.
Tish has presented a few times, I think.
They also talk about publicity and some of the scams that occur in writing. And we actually have 3 events per month.
Okay.
We have the monthly meeting. We have the social write-in, which is the second Saturday of the month.
And what happens at the social?
The social write-in is where we gather on Zoom and are put into rooms of 4 people each. And you get 4 writing prompts, and you pick one and you write for 10 minutes. And then each person reads their prompt, and then there's time afterwards to talk. And the prompts are designed so that at least 1 or 2 of them are personal, so that you'll write something about yourself. But then there are also ones where you don't have to. Then we reshuffle into different rooms, so you get to meet a lot of people and do a different kind of writing challenge.
So these are intended to kind of help exercise different areas of writing that are like kind of to expand creativity,
right.
I guess. Yeah,
yes.
and to also get feedback, I imagine. Because
right.
I'm just imagining getting prompts and having 10 minutes to write. I mean, I'm imagining maybe coming up with 100 words or something
right.
like
No
that.
one expects you to have a finished piece. That's why it's a non-judgmental environment. There is no feedback there. Then we also have a salon where you can come and read your pieces, again, non-judgmentally, on Monday night, 4th Monday of the evening.
And where's that usually?
That's all on. Everything is on Zoom, and everything is free.
Okay.
We do encourage people to join. There's a moderate fee for joining. Then you can have your work published in the newsletter, and you get access to other club events. You can attend any event of any club in the state if you're a member.
We'll be right back. You can hear the rest of this conversation in just a moment.
If you are looking to buy or sell your home, look no further than Petrocelli Homes. You can find out more about them at petrocellihomes.com or pay Jennifer a visit in downtown Niles. Billy Roy's Burgers in Centerville is a great place to enjoy family, food, and great service. You can find them off the corner of Thornton Avenue and Fremont Boulevard in Centerville. Howler's Pharmacy is here to help. They have been in our community for decades. So whether it's a seasonal issue or whether it's something that you have to take care of regularly, Howler's Pharmacy is here to help you find exactly what you need. Check them out on the corner of Fremont and Peralta in downtown Centerville.
And now, back to our conversation.
Is there anything particularly that you guys have experienced personally through this that has been especially influential for you?
I would not have published. I probably wouldn't have written as much either had I not belonged to this group, because I have gotten to know developmental editors that have helped. I've gotten to know who publishes at what level, and it's really taught me a lot about the writing community, and it's really encouraged me to keep going. And especially when we have critique groups where we, get feedback on what we write, that really helps improve our writing. And that's if people form those groups themselves. Mm-hmm. But the motto is writers helping writers.
Okay.
And that's what we try to do, is help one another.
Okay. Well, Tish said, you said that you mainly do nonfiction, right? And Evelyn, what do you like to do?
Well, it's nonfiction also, but it's memoir. I was in the Peace Corps in Peru, and it's funny because I never thought that much that I had a story, but I've always liked to write since I was in elementary school, and then I wrote a doctoral dissertation, and that totally messed up what people really want to read. And so Fremont Area Writers had people come in. Well, this is before, when we were meeting in person, we would have local experts and people that would come to us. Now that we're on Zoom, we have people like Jane Cleland, who is from New York, who is very generous and tells us about writing craft. So once I learned how to not do a dissertation type thing, and make it interesting, because in this day and age,
dissertations are not.
Well, people's attention spans are shorter, so they won't keep reading unless your first sentence really grabs them, and then the first chapter has to grab them, no, it's fun. I mean, I've gotten to the point that I really, really enjoy the writing process. I think in the beginning, sometimes it's hard. I mean, I remember in school that people struggled with, having enough words to be able to say something
Right,
coherently.
yeah.
And now you have to say it really interestingly because we're competing with social media.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And bit statements.
And like Twitter is just,
Yeah.
People have that short attention span of just reading, something they can get in one, screen or whatever. So a question for you. You went from in-person gatherings to Zoom, and so that obviously you have the benefit of bringing in somebody in that's around the world to be able to speak to you. But it is called the Fremont. It's the Fremont Area Writers. So I mean, is there a significant shift at all? I mean, in a maybe positive, maybe negative way, going from in person to Zoom, because I would imagine that part of the advantage or part of the outflow of meeting in person is that you're really geographically bound, like someone who's willing to drive a certain amount of distance in order to show up at a place and meet in person. Has it kind of taken away maybe the community feel to it in a sense, or the Fremont community feel? In other words, do you have somebody joining you now from Richmond or from from Hollister or whatever, Sacramento, and then but what does that look like then to build a community then with that with the change? Yeah.
Well, you have to get the vibe through your internet.
Yeah.
Connection. The other branch that I belong to is the San Francisco Peninsula branch.
Okay.
And it meets just across the bay in a yacht club, actually.
Oh.
And they were trying to do a combination of online and in person, and it just doesn't work well because it just...
You mean all at the same time?
Yeah, at the same time. We would have a speaker.
And
it was a mess, frankly.
Yeah.
And the people that were responsible for the technology didn't get in on the program because they were so busy taking care of the technology.
Sure.
But I have to say, the energy that you feel both from the speaker and from your colleagues, and then there's a lot of informal back and forth that you don't really have on Zoom. But I like the fact that I don't have to get in my car and go someplace and that I can hear somebody with something to say from far away.
Yeah.
So I like both ways, actually, but I think it's the energy that you feel.
Yeah.
It's the same thing when you're presenting in person.
Yeah.
At one time, we did have, what was it called, where we would go to Starbucks and read our writing. And there's
the
a
salon,
certain...
No.
Oh, I can't remember what the name of it was, but... and the energy that I would feel.
Yeah.
Plus, I would get more nervous.
Being in person in public like that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But we haven't lost any membership. I mean, our membership is about the same, and we do have 2 in-person events during the year. We have a holiday party and we have a picnic.
Yeah.
Nice.
So we do meet each other. But one of the nice things about meeting on Zoom is that if you have mobility or transportation challenges, if you have young children at home, if you have social anxiety, you can participate to whatever degree you want.
That's great.
And we've had speakers. We had a children's book author from Dubai, speak to us.
Okay.
So
that's amazing.
Yeah, that's kind of. There's a limit. We do pay our speakers an honorarium, but it's quite small, and with the price of gas, there's a limit to how much people want to drive come and speak to us, where on Zoom, there's not that problem. Yeah,
that's great. That's great. I'm curious if you guys, because of the club or because of the speakers that you've had, I kind of asked a similar question just a moment ago, like how have you been influenced by the club? Or by it's not a club, by the gathering. But is there anything particular that has influenced you to perhaps shift in a genre or in a particular way? Like you felt like maybe you started writing at one point in one particular way. Like I know you mentioned writing a dissertation, but then writing a dissertation versus something that people actually read for pleasure are 2 different things.
Oh, absolutely.
And so like how has maybe perhaps your experience with other writers or within this community shifted and helped you to maybe go a different direction?
Well, so many of our speakers talk about what readers will read. I mean, making it interesting.
Yeah.
So and we have speakers on all different kinds of topics.
Okay.
One that's coming up is how do you do your research on the internet?
Okay.
And Tish can maybe talk about changing genres because you did from mystery writing, right?
Oh, you were a mystery writer.
Well, no,
okay.
I've had 16 books published, 10 for
Wow.
children and 6
Okay.
for adults.
Okay.
And I wrote a mystery, and I had an agent for it, and he couldn't sell it, which is very disappointing. But the way Fremont Area Writers influenced me most was that I had always written nonfiction. I've probably written hundreds of encyclopedia articles when my children were in college because they paid well. And Fremont Area Writers encouraged me to try fiction. And I haven't given up on the mystery idea. I think I'm going to retool it. But I've also tried some shorter fiction pieces, and I've never seen myself as a fiction writer.
Yeah.
And I love science, so it's not
Yeah.
it's not painful to write about medical things,
Sure.
diseases and disorders. My kids used to laugh when they were little because they said, "You always think we have whatever disease you're writing about."
That is hilarious. That's all. Well, it's interesting. Well, let me ask you this first, and then I'll give something that I reflected on as you were talking there. Do you have any hero writers, people that you look at that have influenced you, people that you've admired as writers?
Colson Whitehead.
Okay.
Mainly because of his quote that writing is always hard. It never gets easier. It never gets harder. It's just always awful. But I really admired his The Underground Railroad and some of the other things that he's written. And I especially admire him because he's written in so many, he's always written fiction, but he's written in so many different subgenres of fiction.
Okay. Wow.
And about the only fiction writer that I read now, because I read almost exclusively memoirs, because that's what I write, is Ann Patchett. And I met her when her the Something House came out.
Okay.
Not her last book. And she's just a great storyteller. But it's funny, because in elementary and high school, I would write a lot of fiction. Then, like I said, when I got into college, it was all, facts. And now memoir just seems to have grabbed me, partly because my background is psychology.
Okay.
And it just is a great way to find out about yourself.
That's interesting.
And how you look at other people. And it's funny because my first book is about falling in love when I was in the Peace Corps in Peru. And I would be writing, I could write for 8 hours straight. And I would come down and talk to my husband and said, I had to change his name because he didn't want to be in it. So I'd say, I just love this Antonio guy. And it's true. By thinking about him and details, it really helped me resolve my thinking about my marriage. I've been married for 58 years.
Okay. Wow. Congratulations.
But my second book is about the marriage, and it wasn't always ideal. And so I wasn't always coming downstairs saying, I just love this Antonio
And he's
guy.
like, I hate this Antonio guy.
Well, the second book is called Love in Any Language, so it resolves itself. But that also helped a lot. I mean, I'm just putting a plug out for people to write about themselves because I just learned so much about myself, and a lot of memoir writers do the same. Yeah. And it seems like I can't stop writing in that genre, and so I'm writing about travels.
Djembe Electric exists to empower your production. If you're a business owner, you know there's nothing that you want more than to focus on what you do best so that you can grow your business. Don't let electrical problems or projects stop you from your greatest production. Call Djembe Electric and let them help you empower your production today. Milk and Honey Cafe is a family-owned restaurant located at 34265 Fremont Boulevard. Right now, they are offering a mid-autumn festival family meal special for dine-in or to-go. You got to check it out. Just drop in or give them a call and ask them more about it. To find out more about the best family-friendly Taiwanese restaurant in Fremont, go to milkandhoneycafe.com or check them out on their Facebook page and Instagram. If you have enjoyed this podcast, consider supporting it with a small gift at buymeacoffee.com/the Fremont Podcast. Thank you for your support and thanks for listening.
I've had moments in my life that have been very exciting. I could tell stories that are just, fantastic. And it's like when I tell them, I'm wondering, am am I just the only one, or is everyone else do they not see life through the same perspective that I see it? Because I feel like I have stories that I could tell that are just, I've never heard them before, but I know that they've happened in my life. I'm not making them up. But then I just wonder, maybe other people have had those same experiences. They just they didn't acknowledge it in the moment, or they just completely approached it from a completely different perspective. And so I've had this feeling of like, I need to document these stories while I can remember them, because they are ones that I feel I've learned from.
I mean, I kept diaries when I was in high school living in Montana, and my world was so small that I mostly just put in my diary what things cost. Like a pair of heels cost $4. I mean, I go back looking for nuggets of how I felt, and I don't find them because I don't think I was that reflective. So that's really something.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, if you do write,
Yeah.
there are a lot of people, you'll be surprised, that identify with whatever you write. I've been surprised about that in my writing, that people come up to me all the time and say, oh, I really identify with this or that or the other thing. Yet it's unique to me. On the other hand, by reading and being in critique groups with people who have had different experiences, it really just opens up my world. Like the last critique group I was in was a woman who had been adopted. And the first thing she said to me, and I'm going to reveal something very personal, but I do that in my book anyway. But she said, oh, you were in the situation that my birth mother was in. I happened to get pregnant before I was married, I was raised very Catholic, so it was kind of a thing in that day and age to be ashamed of.
Yeah.
But by writing about it, I totally got rid of the shame. Plus, times have changed, too.
Yes.
That helped, too.
Yeah.
But I never had been inside the world of an adoptee's life. And that's true of when I'm in groups that are writing memoirs. You get to see really intimate scenes into their lives, and you just never realized that was there. So
that's fascinating. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
I do like the idea of memoirs being able to catch glimpses into people's lives, because I think that we have a particular perspective of somebody just based on whatever, they say first impressions are lasting impressions. Like, just as an example, when I met you two upstairs, I walked through and I had my arms full of gear, and I think I care a lot about first impressions, but I walked in and realized this is a horrible first impression. Like, I'm not even prepared to greet you well and all, but I'm reflecting on that and I'm thinking, I'm glad that I get to have this conversation with you, because I don't want that to be the lasting impression. I want the impression to be one that's different, that we can have in a conversation like this. But I do think that memoirs are ways for us to be able to not only see, like we have what we see and observe in people, but then there's also there's the way that people understand and see things from their perspective and how they see life, how they're experiencing life, and I think that's really helpful. That's really cool.
Well, with the division in the country, they're encouraging us all to get to know other different people.
That's great.
Yeah, someday I would like to write a young adult book about a romantic relationship, written one part of the book written from the girl's point of view and the other from the guy's point of view. I think that would be very interesting.
I like that. I like that. Very cool.
And the other thing that's so great about writing is you never know where your book will end up. I wrote a book called The Vaccine Debate, and it's now in libraries in all 50 states and 39 different countries.
Wow. That's pretty fascinating.
A lot of small countries will buy books in English for their universities. Okay. So
just so that they have.
It turns up in odd places like Armenia.
Well,
there is a website where you can find out where your book has been, what libraries your book has been lodged in.
Wow. Yeah, I had a NASA scientist she grew up here in Fremont, but she wrote a book. Or it was an essay, actually. I think it was an essay or an article on her particular findings, and it found its way into somebody else's, like somewhere around the world, and all of a sudden she was getting calls from all over the place about her research, and it just happened that she thought it was just an insignificant article, but then it ended up being like a very, very significant piece that she had written. So that's cool. I was curious because I asked about if you have any writers that you admire. I'm not a writer. I like the idea of writing, and I like writing when I wrote actually tells actually says what I am feeling or what I want it to say, and I don't know that I have the trick to do that. Maybe I need to join your guys' group. But I love C.S. Lewis, and C.S. Lewis, I love the fact, like, a lot of people know him for writing his children's books, but he also wrote textbooks for Oxford, and so he was a professor who wrote textbooks. So I actually bought a number of his textbooks that he wrote on the English language and on literary criticism and stuff like that. And then I wanted to read those as well because, if you look at what he has written in his fiction or his fantasy or whatever genre it's considered, whatever he's written there comes from his experience as a teacher and as a textbook writer. But then he's also written theology and a lot of other things. So he was all over the place, wrote a lot of different genres. But I just was fascinated with the fact that he could speak to children at a very elementary level, but then write for Oxford University in a textbook level and be able to do both of those at the same time. So anyway, just fascinating.
Yeah. Could we revisit the question of what Fremont Area Writers can do for you?
Yes, let's do that.
Because I have a quote here. This is from Lollipia, who is one of our members and is also a member of the Sacramento branch.
Okay.
She won the She Writes Press Memoir contest, which means they will publish her book and provide her with a promotional package.
She won this contest?
This contest.
Okay.
It's
through She Writes Press.
It's a substantial win.
Okay. Wow.
Her book is called The Fortune Teller's Prophecy, a memoir of an unlikely doctor, and it will be out in April of 2024.
Wow.
And what she said was, I initially joined Fremont Writers after I heard a great presentation from a great speaker, and I was attracted to the adrenaline in the group. This was years back, but I feel that Fremont Area Writers is inclusive, cohesive, supportive, and I like how they get us involved in writing projects in a non-judgmental write-in each month. It also has been helpful to have a few of my writing projects in the newsletter. It gave me some clout that I had prior publications out in the wider world.
Wow.
And although all our meetings are free and events are free, if you want to be published in the newsletter, you need to join. And there are some other advantages to joining.
Okay. Wow. That's awesome.
And I just learned yesterday that this publisher, She Writes Press, which is also my publisher, is going to be distributed by Simon & Schuster now. So it's a big step up
That's awesome.
for them.
Wow.
It is a hybrid publisher.
Okay.
Which means that you pay a certain amount so that they design your book cover and help you with editing. But they have a certain standard. This particular one does. So.
Okay. You brought some books.
Yeah, these are
some of the ones that you've written?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you mention any of these already?
No, I haven't.
What do you have here?
Well, my first one is Between Inca Walls, a Peace Corps memoir.
Okay.
And that's won quite a few prizes. In fact, a Peace Corps prize, which is pretty good for it because it's a national kind of prize. And a lot of Peace Corps people must have bought it because it's, I don't know, they still have some in the warehouse, I understand. Second one is Love in Any Language, a memoir of a cross-cultural marriage. And that's kind of about what happens when you marry someone from another country, or what can happen, and they don't know English, and they don't have a skill for a job, and you're about to have a child, and lots of obstacles to overcome. And that was another thing that was good about writing it, is I really got an appreciation for what we had been through and how we had survived it, because I had to look at lots of detailed, how did we get from here to there, kind of a thing.
That's good. Yeah.
And
those are fascinating. And those are around for people to be able to find or no?
Banter Books should have them.
Okay.
And if not, ask her to order them.
Okay.
I know I walked in there one day and the first book was there, and I told her at that time we were distributed by Ingram Publishing, because she doesn't, if you're self-published, independent books a lot of times stores won't carry your books, because I don't know if people know this, bookstores that buy books can return them if they don't sell them.
Right.
And so unless you've got a distributor that will do that, then,
Yeah, this is really cool. I'm curious, both of you spent a significant amount of time in Fremont. Is there anything in Fremont that has inspired your writing, or anything that you have written that you've changed the name of a place? I know we have Antonio, who's not really Antonio. Maybe have a...
Fremont is mentioned in my second book. In fact, a good part of it from 1971 on, it has been, it takes place in Fremont. But I have a map in the front of the whole Bay Area, just so that people know where Fremont is located in connection with San Francisco and the other places. So
yeah, that's cool. Any other influences from this area, culturally or geographically?
Well, I think Fremont is a very pleasant place to work. For my work, I've been an educator. I was for 32 years, and I used to commute out of Fremont. And when I retired, I thought, oh no, now I'm going to have to spend all my time in Fremont. And that's when I began to appreciate it. I thought, well, then let's get involved, So I belong to a lot of organizations in Fremont, and I've learned that Fremont is there's a reason why they come out number one on one of the best places for families to live.
Right.
Well, what's impressed me most about Fremont is how multicultural it is.
Right.
And it hasn't been a direct influence, but I did write a book about theocracies where I read quite a bit about the Taliban and Afghanistan, and it made me appreciate a lot of the Afghan immigrants that had come here. And I've also written 2 books, African Americans, Scientists and Inventors, and African Americans in Business. These are books for children or young adults.
Okay.
And it's made me more open to writing about cultures that are not my own, because I've found the ones in Fremont so interesting.
Yeah. The community that I specifically grew up in, where I was influenced the most, seemed to be very, very much more monocultural than here. I mean, most of the people were very much like me. In a lot of ways, and I think that even going to Baltimore, it shifted a little bit, but coming out here, it's very different than any other place that I've lived, but it's been very, very helpful. And I think when you come with an open mind, and when you come with a desire to truly get to know people and care about them, I think that it opens up a lot of doors and a lot of opportunity to get to know people.
Well, there's so much more variety in California. I remember growing up in Montana, southeastern corner, and I was born in North Dakota, and that was my world. And I say in my book, the expectation was a girl by the age of 18 should have a horse and a husband, in that order. And I wasn't crazy about horses. I did ride them, and I never thought of husband. I mean, who was... And then moving to California, it just was such a variety of people that I'd never been exposed to, and I loved it. So at the first chance I got, I spent a summer in Mexico, and then, like I said, I went to Peru for 2 years. And now my husband and I have traveled to over 110 countries. And
wow, that's incredible.
There's just lots of different ways of doing things.
I knew very little about California when I moved here, before I moved here. And I literally believed that California was just beaches in LA, Hollywood. I didn't know much about California. And so in some sense, I think what my fear is that I was exchanging one monocultural for another monoculture. And I think what I found beautiful when I came and visited, which was part of the convincing that I needed to move here, was that I came here and realized, oh man, there is a mix of all kinds of people from all over the world, and the cultures are very different. And so I wasn't just exchanging a monoculture that I grew up in, that I was comfortable in, for one that I was uncomfortable with, but I was actually growing into a place where I fit right in with the diversity that that exists within this particular place. So
I absolutely did not want to move to California.
Yeah.
And I found it very difficult, partly because I always worked from home as a writer, and partly because my children were old enough that I didn't meet the parents of their friends. But over time, I have come to appreciate it.
Okay.
Quite a bit. And I think that it was very good for my kids to grow up in this kind of culture.
Yeah, that's the way I'm feeling about my
They seem
kids
to be
as
much
well.
more flexible than I was when I was growing up.
Right. So I'm gonna close by asking you tricks of the trade. What if you could give one trick of the trade for maybe somebody who's listening who needs to be urged or inspired into, taking another step in the writing? world, what would be the trick of the trade that you might pass along?
You can't edit a blank page.
Oh, I like that.
You have to write. Keep writing.
Yeah.
Remember, the rule of writing is the first sentence is to make you want to read the second sentence. The purpose of the second sentence is to make you want to read the first paragraph. And the purpose of the first paragraph is to hook you on the story.
I like that.
But you have to write it.
Yeah.
You can't just think it.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons why I'm happy that I have an editor who edits the podcast who is a writer, because I think he takes all this content, listen to it, which is really great. So that people will actually want to, and he fashions it in a way.
Well, and I say people love stories. If you see even politicians or anybody, if they tell a story or a vignette, that's what captures your attention.
Yeah.
But it takes rewriting. I mean, my greatest joy is rewriting, and I will rewrite 5, 6, 7, 8 times. And even when I got the galleys for my first book, I didn't know there was a limit to how many times you could return it, changing things. And I think I returned it 18 times because I always found some better way to express something. And it's a real pleasure for me.
Yeah.
But first I had to learn. One of my teachers had said, right at the bottom of this page, she gave us it was a mystery book, and I never read mysteries, but I did this one, and right at what would make you turn to read the next page? So I'm always aware of that when I'm writing is what would make people, and there's conflict, and I forget there's another thing that you do, but writing can be a real pleasure. And in my case, especially writing about your life is a real pleasure. And
That's awesome.
It's not a pain.
Yeah, I love that.
And it's a real satisfaction, I'm sure, to do podcasts just like it is to see your writing in print.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Well, what's interesting, too, and I trust my Andrew, who's my editor, I trust him a lot. When I get done with this, I will send him the files. And then I don't listen to what he does with it until it comes out live. So I don't go and check what he's done. And I always find it fascinating what he does with what I handed over to him, and I just think it's beautiful. So I think it's really great. So
and I think when you're talking about writing, and you want to be a writer, you have to remember that whatever comes out initially is not the finished product. You can't expect it to be perfect right away. You shouldn't get discouraged. It's hard work, but it's worth it, and Fremont Area Writers is here to help you get through those times when you look at it for the 25th time and think, oh my, there's something wrong with this and I don't know what it is.
That's great. Yeah.
And our website is cwcfremontareawriters.org, and
Okay.
you can find us, and we have we're on Facebook, and just you can put in Fremont Area Writers.
Right, or if you can't remember the website, you just Google Fremont Area Writers, and we come up, and all every month our newsletter is updated and put on the website.
Okay. Yep. And then we'll have those links also in the show notes for this episode, so people will just pull up the episode and they can click on it there too.
Perfect.
Is there anything else that we want to get into the ears of people before we go?
Well, just start writing or keep writing.
There you go. There you go. I love it. Well, Tish and Evelyn, thank you guys so much for joining me. And I'm excited to hear. I'm excited to read what you guys have written. Maybe I'll have to dive into some of these books. And my son, I'm sure, will be fascinated with your book that'll be coming out in 2024 on the stuff that came out of the military experience. So that's pretty cool. Thank you guys for joining me.
Thank you.
This episode was hosted and produced by Ricky B. Scheduling and pre-interviews by Sarah S. Rachel Prey is the print editor in charge of our newsletter. I'm Gary Williams. Andrew Cavett is the editor. Music provided by Soundstripe.com. Be sure to subscribe wherever it is that you listen so you don't miss an episode. You can find everything we make, the podcast, our newsletter, and all of our social media links at thefremontpodcast.com. Join us next week on the Fremont Podcast.
Just the other day, my 10-year-old turned 11, and he had a party. Every party that we've had for him on his birthday, he was born on Halloween, so it was on Halloween. And so every party that we've had for him has always been significant. Like he's been our only child up until last year when we had our second child, and we've just kind of gone all out for him. But this last one, he even said, I just want to have a few friends come over. I want to carve some pumpkins and just have hang out with them. So they all did that. They came and then they left. And after they left, he turned to me and my wife and said, "I am so thankful for the party. Thank you for doing that." And he said, "But I feel really sad." And and in that moment, I was just thinking, what is happening? Like, why is he sad? And why is he also seemingly very thankful? And I thought, you know what? He has hit a milestone in his life and in his maturing process where he actually now has both a part of life that he can reflect on and compare to, but he's also acknowledging the reflections that that he's having on what his parties may have been like, or they had been, the joy and the exciting things of those, versus now he truly did enjoy this party, but there's something about this party that's stands out, that's different from those. So he's so anyway, it was just one of those things where I started reflecting. It was like, my child has turned a corner where he is reflecting on moments in his life, and he has something to compare them to that are now causing a deeper emotional response in him. And I just made me start thinking more about even my experiences in my life and thinking how significant they are to me. So I know I just talked a lot on that, but
no, it sounds like you're both are introspective, which is a good thing to record, I think.
Yeah.
This is a Muggins Media podcast.